I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Colziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to That Sounds Terrifying, a podcast with Nick and Jess. Um, I'm a little punchy today. I'm joined today again by Nick. Say hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Good job.
Yeah,
So proud of
I
you.
listen. I'm a good listener. I'm a good talker, but
Excellent. Excellent. Stop talking. I'm busy. I'm still going to talk now. Okay.
okay.
So I'm just kidding.
It's going to be a very one-sided conversation podcast today.
No, we are about to lay down our holiday episode again this year. And if you didn't listen to our one from last year, I think you should go back and listen to our holiday episode from last year because it had a really good foundation of why we talk about ghosts at holiday time. And it has a lot to do with it being darker and spookier. And, in the days of yore, they didn't have lights, they had fire. So
Fire.
things were just creepier back then. And they were like, you know what? Good time to, just lay it down and add more ghosts to this. But we had, yeah, that was a fun episode that episode we talked about like Christmas and Santa and things like that, which was neat. And
Yeah.
Yule. And
Yeah.
there was a Nordic tradition too that we talked about that was really cool.
Mhm.
Um, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of.
Well, you should go back and listen to that
I should
episode.
go back and listen. Yeah, it's not in my brain right now. Ah, you're right. You're always right.
I
But
wouldn't go that far.
so Nick has a story for us, a creepy story. And then I have, if you're looking for, some midwinter spooks and scary tales, I have some books that I'm going to recommend from the LA Public Library. And then, we'll see where this goes, right, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, apparently we're going to LA to pick out some books, so
Some spooky books.
spooky books.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, without further ado,
without further
let's
ado.
let's engage with the Christmas Carol, the Christmas Caroler.
Is that what this is
So
about?
that's what this is called, the Christmas
Oh,
Caroler. Caroler.
for the Carol.
It's gonna be a really great story because I can apparently not enunciate that word. So hopefully I don't have to say that too many times, right?
Please say it.
So, Caroler. So,
Carol.
Caroler. So,
Yeah, we're
the
both
Christmas
punchy today. It's
Caroler.
a
I
it's a
know.
problem.
We got into the eggnog a little early.
I wish.
Mhm. So, all right. Well, let's get started.
Mhm.
Um, Fun stuff. All right. So I always thought that it was just an urban legend, one of those ghost stories you tell those long, dark nights of winter that are just, a little more thrilling. But last year, I learned the truth. It started on a snowy Friday night. My partner, Ethan, and I were decorating our little house at the edge of town. We just finished stringing the lights outside, and the glow of the tree in the living room bathed the space in warmth. Everything felt peaceful and cozy. I was hanging ornaments when I heard, for the first time, a faint voice carrying on the icy wind. First, I thought it was a neighbor, and people in our community still did the old-fashioned holiday caroling, and I figured someone was just starting to make those rounds. But then I glanced out the window, and there was no one there, just the snow swirling under the street lamp. "Do you hear that?" I asked Ethan. He was busy untangling a strand of lights. "Hear what?" he said, looking up. "The singing. It seems so close." He paused and cocked his head, listening, and after a moment just shrugged it off, probably just someone a few streets over. But I wasn't so sure. The voice wasn't fading, it was growing louder, and there was something off about it. I just couldn't put my finger on it. The melody was kind of haunting, beautiful in a way, but, but also in a way that it made the hair on my back stand up. I pulled back the curtain to check again, and that's when I saw it. Standing at the edge of our driveway was a figure in an old fashioned clothing, a long dark coat, gloves, wide brimmed hat that shadowed their face. They were looking at a book of carols in their gloved hands and tilting their head slightly as they sang. Ethan, there's someone out there. He joined me at the window, squinting in the dark. It's just a caroler, he said, but his voice had a little bit of an edge of unease, sensing my discomfort. Should we see what they want? I shook my head. Something's just not right. Ethan hesitated a little and then shrugged. Suit yourself. He went back to decorating, but the singing didn't stop. It seemed to grow louder, as if the caroler had moved closer, like almost inside of the house. I couldn't help myself, so I peeked outside again, but the figure hadn't moved. Voice felt like it was coming in and echoing off the walls. All right, enough of this, Ethan said, grabbing his coat. I'll just ask him to leave. Don't, I pleaded. He ignored me. I watched from the window as he approached the figure. The singing stopped abruptly, plunging the night into an eerie silence. Hey, Ethan called out. Can I help you? Caroler didn't respond. Instead, they slowly tilted their head upward. My breath caught in my throat as I saw what was beneath the hat. Nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just a smooth, pale expanse of skin where a face should be. Ethan stumbled back and fell in the snow. Frozen in place on the ground, the caroler raised a gloved hand towards him and pointed at the house. And then, without moving their non existent mouth, they spoke. Your song is over. The voice wasn't a single voice, it had many layers and it was discordant, like a choir singing from the depths of a cave. The figure seemed to dissolve into the falling snow, leaving Ethan laying in the snow alone, trembling. He jumped up, bolted back inside, and was pale as a ghost. What happened? I asked nervously, but I already knew. He opened his mouth and started to speak, but no sound came out. He clutched his throat, panicking. Whatever he had seen or heard had stolen his voice. We never did see that caroler again, but the memory of night still haunts us. Sometimes in the quiet December nights, I think I hear it, a faint melody drifting on the wind, remind me of the warning I failed to heed. Some songs are meant to be sung, and others are meant to be left in silence. They say if you hear a lone Christmas caroler singing on your doorstep at night, don't open the door. No matter how beautiful the melody, no matter how festive the season, resist the urge to look, or you might become a legend like this.
Oh, that went in an unexpected direction.
Right?
I thought it was going to be Black Eyed Kids
Yeah.
or something.
No-eyed kids.
Yeah, there was no face. So wait, did the husband lose his voice forever or just like at that moment?
Yeah, it seems like I lost it forever.
Yeah.
It didn't go into it too deeply, but there's a lot of lore around this that I was finding.
Wow.
And it seems to be that like anyone that sees it and goes out sort of confronts it, they sometimes lose their voice, sometimes they lose their mind, and sometimes it's like even worse. So it's just it was an interesting kind of different approach.
They lose their
Uh
leg.
right, lose a leg. You start walking out, all of a sudden a leg is missing.
Yeah,
Um,
they lose their thumbs.
yes. My eyebrows, I lost my eyebrows. So,
Sorry.
but I thought it was a nice change kind of in the stories that we sort of tell. And
Yeah, it was
um,
neat.
yeah,
I
but
love new lore.
right, right. So, but I remember as a kid, it didn't happen very often in our neighborhood. But I remember one night going to sleep and hearing people singing, and it was pretty late, you know, but they were singing and it was beautiful and it was snowing and which is kind of unusual for where I grew up on Long Island. It wasn't always snowing around Christmas time. We had a lot of green
Mhm.
Christmases, but this particular night, I remember going to sleep and hearing, like a choir singing in our neighborhood, which was beautiful. But could you imagine hearing like a choir and then looking outside and it's one person?
Yeah, that'd be weird and
So
creepy.
but it is your thought about the black-eyed child and stuff like that, or children. It kind of has that same sort of feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not supposed to let them in because something bad will happen because you're letting in like evil. But yeah, you said there's a lot of lore around that. It's new to me. I shouldn't say it's new lore, but it's new to me lore. And I think that's really neat. Just when you think you heard everything.
Right, right. There's always something new. Yeah, there was some stuff on Creepypasta about, but like, um, the solo singer, and then the other things related to the carolers, and I just thought this one was the creepiest. So,
That is.
um, this wasn't a creepypasta, it was another story, but still, that's kind of where, our research seems to go, to Reddit and creepypasta and all that stuff. And
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's free use, and that's
yeah,
they have like
yeah,
some of the best stories are from these people that they're like, I'm never gonna like tell it, but then they write it all out, and you're like, "Ah, it's a
yeah,
shame not to share this."
yeah, for sure.
Um, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I definitely thought it was going towards like, don't go, and then like the kid looks up and there's a black cat. That's
Yeah.
great. I love it.
Or like they're infiltrating the house or something. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, no. Well, yeah, if you heard like a ton of people singing and you just see one, I'm gonna be like, are the other people at my back door? Did they surround my house? Now I gotta call
Right.
the cops.
Yeah. Just run out with
Yeah.
like, what was the movie? There was a movie where the person like they didn't shoot him with a hose. Maybe they threw water outside, but it ended up being their guests or something. They were trying to get rid of the carolers and they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave. And then like they finally got fed up and they went and threw like a huge pot of water out the door, and it ended up being someone else the carolers had left. It's like a boss or something relative.
Um, I looked up the skeleton horse and it was
Mhm.
Mary Louise. Gosh, I said how to say it on the podcast last year too. It's
Yeah. So you got to go back
Mary.
to that
I
podcast.
gotta go back to the podcast.
Lewin.
Everybody go listen to the podcast and
Yeah.
tell
That's
me what a dummy I am for not remembering it this year. I wish I did. But yeah, definitely go back. It was a festive one. I liked that one.
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of festive, I know we're not in Halloween time anymore, but I'm spooky around. And so I like a good book that like, gives me a little chill. And these are books that, like I said, the LA Public Library um, recommended for in the bleak midwinter because that's where we're at. It reminds me of that song that we sang in a cappella. I don't know if you ever heard that one. It's in the bleak midwinter. Da,
Mhm.
da, 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 da. I don't know, remember. Oh, that's all I know. That's all I
Just
remember.
in the bleak
And
midwinter.
yeah, in the bleak midwinter. Da, 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 da. Something about roses being buried. I don't know. But yeah, it reminds me of that song. But without further ado, it is still the season for ghost stories. I'd like to remind people that just because it's not Halloween anymore, um, winter is historically the time for ghost stories.
Mhm.
So, just a few of these. I didn't put all of them, but some of them. Some of them are really hard to read in this day and age because they're from the 1800s.
Yeah.
And I don't know, have you
It's a
ever tried to
different
read it?
cadence. Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever tried to read an old book? Like I have
Yeah.
tons of like 100+ year old books that I got from the Pittsford
Ye old
Library.
English.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get through a page. I'm like, what does that mean? And I have to like look things up to understand
Mm.
their jargon too,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
how that um
Well, it's funny because you said without further ado, and then there was further ado. That's why I was laughing.
you know what? I like do.
I like I like to take a do further,
Yeah, there's so much to
I
do
don't
a
think we're
do.
using this phrase right. Couldn't that be funny? Like, it's our catchphrase. We're using it all the time. I think we've mentioned it pretty heavily in the last couple episodes, and someone's gonna write us and say, "You're not using that phrase correctly at all."
I literally am.
Okay.
Like how people say literally, but it's
Yeah.
not literal at all.
No.
It's a little ingest, a little facetious. Anyways, um, this book is called Daniel, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Nope, sorry. Delete that. Delete what I just said.
Okay.
Okay. This book is called The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This was written in 1898.
Oh,
So
just a few years ago.
just a two tree years. Um, the story, this is what the person who recommends it is stating. The story had held us round the fire sufficiently breathless, but except the obvious remark that it was gruesome, as on Christmas Eve in an old house, a strange tale should essentially be. I remember no comment uttered till somebody happened to note it as the only case he had met in which such a visitation had fallen on a child. That's actually a quote from the book. So begins Henry James' masterpiece of atmospheric horror. Though known for his subtle novels of character, which plumb depths of psychological ambiguity in impressionistic traceries of prose. Wow, this guy really likes big words. James had a childhood love of the ghost stories of Hawthorne, Poe, and Le Fanu. Le Fanu? Le Fanu? I cannot remember how to say his
Sounds
name.
good.
And returned to the somber form in the 1890s after a lull in his literary fortunes and the deaths of several close friends. In relating the vivid experiences of a young governess who is hired to care for two orphan children in a cavernous manner and comes to believe that they are under the malign influence of her spectral predecessors, James fully updates the ghostly tale in a profoundly modernist creation, beautifully subjective and leaving just the right questions unanswered. The Turn of the Screw may be his most famous and terrifying. But all of the 18 stories that Leonidel collected into The Ghostly Tales of Henry James are imbued with otherworldly frights. So there's an actual book, The Ghostly Tales of Henry James, that he's, you know, it sounds like a little anthology
Oh,
of books. So that was one.
no,
I'm
it's
going,
funny. I just like I love that phrase that you threw out there, atmospheric horror. Like that's awesome. And then you also start when you started about like we were talking about you old English. There's these two TikTokers, and I can't remember their names, but I will post something on it after we air this. But they kind of redo a whole series of different things all in like old English. And like the one guy's name is Niles. He's like, yes, Niles. It's just funny as heck. So, but anyways, that's what I was thinking about when you were kind of telling that.
um, yeah, atmospheric horror is so I prefer cozy horror, like cozy, mystery, like,
Mhm.
small town, solve it, and then happy ending for everybody. But when I do want to be like truly scared, I go for that atmospheric horror where you're just
Yeah.
scared the entire time and reading it, you feel unnerved the whole time because you know something's about to happen. And if books could do jump scares, I feel like a lot of those
Mhm.
types of books are the ones that really can do
Yeah.
them,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know? Um, let me see. Okay, this was The Crown Derby Plate by Marjorie Bowen in 1931. I like this because it's written by a woman in the 1930s, so
Mhm.
there weren't many um, women writers that got a lot of credit.
Mhm.
This eerie tale by Marjorie Bowen, the pseudonym of Margaret Gabrielle Vera Campbell Long, who lived from 1885 to 1952, follows a classic pattern. A ghost story that begins with someone smiling, saying that they'd like to see a ghost, and the wish usually comes true over the course of the story, but seldom as amusing as the wisher anticipates. Bowen was an extraordinarily prolific writer, producing at least 150 books, ranging from crime dramas and historical romances to children's stories and biographies of famous historical figures. And she used several pseudonyms, both female and male, as she wrote.
Well, I think I know why she used pseudonyms because Margaret Gabriel Vera Campbell Long is like quite a mouthful.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes, you're right. I mean, you don't have to include your middle names, do you? Like,
I don't know. That's like four names in there.
Yeah, that was one, two,
Marjorie
three, four,
Bowen.
five. That
That's
was five
yeah.
names. Yeah.
Okay, I can't count, so that's all right.
Yeah, that's all right. You have five fingers and you can count like this.
I wasn't doing that while I was saying them. You're lucky I actually was able to recall them.
No, it's true. It's true. Um, so the Crown Derby plate was actually published last year with the title The Grey Chamber, Grey, if you're interested in looking it up. The would-be ghost stalker in the story is Martha Pym, who owns and manages a London antique shop. Go figure. During a Christmas visit to her two cousins in the country, it's like a Hallmark movie, the conversation turns to ghosts, and the cousins wonder how their acquaintance, Miss LeFane, is getting on at Hartley's, a house some distance away that is reputably haunted. Martha recalls that she visited Hartley's 30 years ago for an estate sale where she bought a wonderful collection of Crown Derby china that is still one of the most prized possessions she has. One plate in the set was missing at the time, and Martha's cousin suggests that she might want to visit Miss LaFane at Hartley's to see if she ever came across that lost plate. Intrigued to find the plate and possibly encounter a ghost, Martha eventually finds the house, which seems to be in quite good condition for its age. But Miss LaFane is even more eccentric than she anticipated. And what is that awful smell? That's what it said. I find myself asking that a lot when I step into houses. What is that smell?
Oh God.
Why does it smell like this?
Yeah. Yeah, you just
Um,
oh my God. So many nightmares around selling our house. Yeah.
yeah, with the smells.
Yeah, well, we had a dog and he was a Shar and he had, skin disorder and stuff. So he was a smelly dog.
Oh,
Um, but even you're in an environment, you don't smell things after a while.
go nose
And
blind.
so we were right. So we what was I gonna say? So the realtor that we had, kept getting feedback about the smell of the house or whatever. And she's like, I think that's ridiculous. Your house doesn't smell. And she kept on saying that. So we're like, well, after like I think the third comment, we're like, and she's like, well, it really does. Like, we need you to be truthful and tell us if that's the problem, like you weren't giving us the feedback, like you were giving feedback that these people are nuts.
Yeah,
And so we ended up like having the dog stay with my in-laws for a little while, and we sold the
yeah,
house. But it was just one of the many things that went wrong with that particular realtor. Yeah.
yeah. You
Different
can't.
podcast. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, different podcast. Well, I mean, just to like piggyback on that, I've definitely have stepped into houses where listings and cat pee. You just cannot get
Oh,
rid of cat pee. And I stepped into a house and they were like, you should list this house. And I'm like, I would love to list your house. And then I smelled this cat pee and I'm like, we got to get rid of this cat pee smell. And she was super offended.
yeah,
But I was like, it's either me or the buyer that's going to tell you, and
yeah,
they'll say it with their money.
yeah,
So let's get rid of this cat pee smell before we list it, and
yeah,
then we'll be better off. Because cat pee, you just
yeah,
can't. I walk in with my buyers into a house with cat pee smell, and I'm like, no,
yeah,
this is going to be really hard to get out.
yeah.
Unless this is going to be really undersold, it's too
Right.
hard to get out.
Right, right. Well, there's like shrubs that smell like kind of like cat pee. There's like a shrub kind of thing. And I
Hmm.
remember there was one house we looked at and we were convinced that it was cat pee, but it wasn't. It was all around the house, like this shrubbery thing. And turned out
Why
that
would
the
you do that?
owner, I don't know, turned out the owner was allergic, definitely allergic to cats. So it definitely wasn't cats. But we kind of did a little well, the realtor knew, said, oh, it's the shrub. It's like, I don't know why they have it. Like you said, I don't know why they have it all over the place.
Ugh,
We're just
it
touching on
can't
all the really
can't be that
important,
pretty. Yeah,
terrifying subjects today.
I know. It's a little it's a little like I said, we're punchy today. I have a
Yeah.
show tonight, so maybe I'm just like gearing up for my improv
Awesome.
show to
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
whatever you throw at me, let's go. Yeah, I don't know. But uh those are two books that I want to talk about. And I think I think if we have time, I could probably read a quick little Reddit
Yeah, I think we
story.
have some time for Reddit. We always have time for Reddit.
My 3 years with a ghost from Reddit. And from Reddit user, this was literally 16 hours ago. From
Sweet.
Big Blue 541. If anybody wants to go look it up, and I'm giving them credit.
You probably can still comment on it. I know a lot of
I
our stories you can't, Reddit has removed the ability to comment.
Yeah. This may get a little long, but we'll see. I've told the story several times over the years, but not online. Figured this would be a fun place to do it. In 1991, I was 6 years old, and my family, mom, dad, and sister, had moved to a different part of town. Better schools, nicer area, that kind of thing. It was certainly an upgrade from where we were moving from. The house stood out from the other houses in the neighborhood. It was the only two-story house in a neighborhood, and the foundation noticeably sat up higher than the surrounding houses. My dad had learned that when the neighborhood was being developed and the land was being leveled and flattened, they would uh, they would up with a big mound of excess dirt. Oh, they went up with a big mound of excess. They would end up. Sorry, he's missing words in here. They would end up with a big mound of excess dirt, so they basically just built a house on top of it. It was a tri-level house with a two-car garage, family room, half bath, and closet on the lowest level. After living there comfortably for 10 or so years, my parents decided to combine the half bath and closet into a full bathroom. To do this, we had to jackhammer through the concrete foundation to add and move plumbing for the new shower that was going in. Keep in mind that context is speculative, given that there's no way to know if doing so had anything to do with what started happening almost immediately after we remodeled that bathroom. It's just always felt that way to me and my family. Well, I'll pause here and just say, yeah, renovations will stir stuff up. We've talked about that before on this podcast.
Yeah.
Renovations can stir up energy, stagnant energy, whatever it is. Okay. The middle portion of the house was kitchen, dining room, and living room space, with 3 bedrooms and a bathroom at the top level. Within days of the remodel, late at night, my dad's stereo system turned on in the living room while everybody was asleep. I was the first to wake up, so I went downstairs expecting to find my dad rocking out at like 2 a.m. for some reason, although he's definitely never done that before. Though he was and is quite the audiophile, so you never know. But as I'm getting down the stairs, not only am I realizing it's some random late night radio playing, but there aren't even any lights on. I just remember turning on a lamp and going over to the stereo cabinet, turning off the receiver, and just standing there like, what the hell? I was the only one who woke up as far as I knew, and I had a feeling my sister, 14 at the time, was pulling a prank on me. But when I accused her of doing it the next morning, she was not having it. My parents brushed it off, considering they never heard anything either. Well, this kept happening. I'd say probably 8 to 10 more times in the following couple months. The same thing would happen every time, always in the middle of the night. The stereo would come on and the volume would slowly go up until someone ran downstairs and turned it off. There were times it gotten way too loud before someone made it downstairs, and this particularly frustrated the hell out of my dad because the stereo system was his pride and joy. He was afraid the speakers were going to blow out. My parents, of course, thought either my sister or I were doing this, but before we had even fully convinced them it wasn't us, other things started happening. For example, I was standing in the upstairs shower washing my hair one time, and as I'm facing the back of the shower wall, I see a shadow sweep around the whole shower. Of course, I pull the curtain open expecting to see my sister or someone messing with me, but no one was there, and the door was locked. There were lots of shadow incidents. From the living room, you can see upstairs to some degree, and we would often see out of the corner of our eyes something quickly crossing the hallway to one room, from one room to another. Like you would barely catch a flash of something when no one was up there. Touch lamps would come on by themselves. That happened at everybody's house. Their
Yeah.
touch lamps. My dad said on a couple occasions he'd just be laying awake, having trouble sleeping, and the touch lamp on the nightstand next to him would just turn on by itself. I mean, like I said, our piano light does that like used to do that all the time when I was a kid. It was just something they did. Although, if you think about it, just a little side note here, like maybe most houses have ghosts and they were turning them on. They're like, oh, those things just turn on. But really,
Hmm.
it's like, it was the easiest thing for a
Conspiracy.
ghost to like touch like, and
Yeah.
manipulate. I'm just teasing, but that would be a theory. Um, Most notably, my close friend and dad described seeing the exact same person in the house. In fact, they both saw this person while doing the same thing, which was walking into the front door when no one else was home. Probably a year or so into these occurrences, my dad got home from work one day, opened the front door, and saw a young girl around my sister's age standing at the top of the stairs that would take you down into where the remodeled bathroom was. He said she looked about my sister's age and had similar blonde hair, wearing a light blue dress with a white collar. As soon as he saw her, she bolted down the stairs. He went over there, checked the whole downstairs, upstairs. No one was home. A friend of mine, not long after that, would do the exact thing. We got home from school. I threw him my keys to open the door because I was carrying stuff. He walked in the front door and saw the exact same thing my dad saw. He described the same hair, clothes, everything. I wish the story got juicier from here, but ultimately we just adapted to it. It was a little spooky at first, but once we realized it was just a young girl, we were so used to it anyway, it almost became comical. Things kept happening up until the point I moved out at 19 and the house was sold about a year later when my parents divorced. Oh. One other interesting detail is that the guy who bought the house did so as an investment property that he planned to rent out. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that house being sold or going up for rent over the last 20 years since. Did we realize the ghost of a young girl after breaking through, excuse me, did we release the ghost of a young girl after breaking through the foundation? Perhaps a grave was among the mound of dirt that the house was built on? Did something nefarious happen, or was it just an annoying glitch in the Matrix? Regardless, it's always been fun to speculate.
Yeah. Wow. Those renovations and those touch lamps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shared that little interaction, and that hasn't happened basically since I shared that, the whole touch lamp thing, but mine was a little different because it was like out of sequence.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
So it it's funny. And lately I haven't had it plugged in at all, but like weeks after I shared that story, it just wasn't happening anymore. So, but that's interesting. I wonder, you know, kind of along the same lines, like there's like those like affirming details, like where I mean it's all from the same storyteller on Reddit, but like they're saying like my friend saw the same thing my dad saw, and those
Yeah.
types of things are interesting,
Yeah.
um, and kind of more compelling than
Yeah.
some of the other stories that you might hear from one single person.
Yeah, that you can't cooperate. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was a neat, fun story, but
Yeah,
um I I think just thinking about like certain stories and stuff that I've been hearing lately, um, the ghost stories like that, like they don't creep me out. I would do the same thing like them, like just be like, yeah, that's just
yeah.
is what it is. But doppelganger stories,
Oh yeah.
like the stories of lookalikes, that scares the crap out of me. Like I can't get past it.
Hmm.
Can you imagine walking in and like seeing like your mom or your spouse and like but their smile's just off a bit like or too big and you're like what is happening like I heard a story the other day like that and she
Hmm.
literally said like my husband was standing behind me but his smile he had this big smile on his face and it was too big for his face and he was supposed to be at work
Yeah.
and then I turned around and said like what are you doing and she said she turned back and he was gone and she freaked and she called him and she was like, "What were you doing home? Where are you?" 'Cause she looked for him and he was nowhere. And he was like, "I'm at work. What the hell are you talking about?" And she was like,
Right.
"You were just here. You were just here."
That's crazy. Well,
I
and
would never sleep in that house again.
yeah. Well, and then think about the childhood stuff. So you remember like the invisible friends or things like that. But think
Mm.
about like you getting accused of something. Have you ever been accused of something that you're adamant that you did not
Oh,
do? And
many
you
times.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but think about it from that perspective of like, what if you really didn't do it? And you're like, I have a couple. not a lot, but I have a couple times where, but I had two brothers. So
Mhm.
like where I was accused of something and I know it wasn't me and everyone else said it wasn't them. But what if it was you that your parents thought they saw
Doppelganger.
and it's your doppelganger being, and doing something,
I'd be not okay with that. Like
right?
not not at all. No. I don't know. But I mean like I shouldn't I guess I shouldn't say this part, but um like identical twins have always like
Mhm.
I can never tell them apart sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I specifically remember being terrified of Tweedledee and Tweedledum when I was
Hmm.
little. In Alice in Wonderland, I would like hide every time they would come on that movie. Like
Hmm.
somebody be putting that movie on and I would run and hide from the twins. I think there's something about doppelgangers and something like two people looking exactly the same and especially one that looks like you and they're not supposed to.
Right.
There's
Right.
something kind of inherently terrifying about it and I don't know what that is or why. But it just is. I don't know.
Well, we have twins and they're not identical, but they looked well enough alike. And they've
Hmm.
like both have long hair now. And so like the coach for their hockey team gets all frustrated. What are you doing to me? Stop growing your hair out. Now I can't tell you apart.
I can't
But
tell them
like,
apart.
yeah, but they're, fraternal twins and to us, they nothing alike. But I remember like, teachers that had like at a certain age they split them up, right? So they had
Hmm.
different teachers, but they would confuse them in the hall and like, so how much of that again, like how much of that is like, Colton getting in trouble for something Callum did or Callum getting in trouble for something Colton did, or not
Right.
even in just what they did, just being called out and saying, "Hey, I saw you were doing this and whatever." But
Yeah.
like those poor twins.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So,
I get that. Like I grew up with a cousin that we don't look alike at all, but people would get us confused all the time. My
yeah.
mom and her sisters would get confused all the time. People would be like, "I
Yeah.
saw your mom at Wegmans." I'm like, "My mom wasn't at Wegmans."
Hmm.
Consistently. But I don't know.
Yeah.
And most people will look at me and they'll be like, I feel like we've met before. I feel like I know you. I just have one of those faces where I do, I have a lot of people that look like me, but I have a very Italian face, I guess. I don't know. And there's
You just have a lot of doppelgangers, Jess.
I
That's really what it
do.
is.
And it's one of those typical Italian faces. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, just doppelgangers
Yeah.
creep me out in a way that like other things don't. Like when I have dreams of seeing and I see myself in the dream, I hate it. I don't like to see myself in my dreams. It's
Hmm.
creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. That is weird. And, you made me think of something else. I've dated twins before, identical twins, not both of them, but one of them.
Oh, I was like,
You know what I
at the
mean?
same time, Nick? What do you mean? This is also a different podcast.
Yeah. Well, and in some of them, and sometimes they do like have fun with you and like because like I'm the same way. I have trouble like, like figuring out who's who. Like one said actually like they had a piercing on their eyebrow, so it was very evident that,
Mm.
that was the sister, you know. So, but like they have apps now, and this is just funny. We were just talking about this friend of mine where you take a picture of yourself and a picture of celebrity or your friend whatever and they will kiss or whatever and like so you're thinking about that fear too like as a husband or a wife getting caught cheating when they're not cheating and it's just this thing that people are like building up and
Yeah,
like trying to
yeah.
get you in trouble but like also the doppelganger stuff like what if your doppelganger is her arms around your husband's best friend or something like that or whatever like you're gonna be like just like the kid like oh I didn't do it, it was my doppelganger did it.
That's I wonder how that would fly. Like that's not a real picture. That's literally
Yeah,
like
the movie
AI.
that you saw is AI, it's all
Yeah,
AI.
actually,
Yeah.
AI is now taking evil entity doppelgangers jobs too now, I guess.
Yeah,
Now you're not gonna know.
you're never gonna know.
all in
You're never
person.
gonna know,
And
right?
somebody's gonna see like their doppelganger, like or their husband's doppelganger, and she'll be like, "Oh, that must be AI," and turn around and keep doing the laundry or whatever it is. And the doppelganger gets angry, like, "No, what? You're supposed to be scared." Nah, there's
Yeah.
AI now.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid.
It's like the holograms, like a
Yeah.
hologrammed AI. It's just a hologram. No one's
You
gonna believe
got your
anything
mouth
anymore.
wrong. That's,
Yeah. That'd
I
be even
think
better.
that would be so funny if you just like started giving the doppelganger shit. The mouth is off. Your eyes are wonky. They're black. Why are your eyes black? That's
Yeah.
weird, man. That's weird. And the doppelganger's like, what? Why are you
Yeah.
afraid?
That's like the AI thing where they generate, the smile's too
You're
big. Oh,
so
your smile's too
creepy.
big. Yeah, that's your doppelganger. But could you imagine like her talking to the real person, like, no, Jess, you're Jess's doppelganger. I'm not believing you.
Yeah, I don't believe me. I exist. I exist.
Your
No, you don't.
rendering is all whack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your face is fatter. Oh no.
Oh, that would be horrible. So
That'd be funny.
awesome. Well, those were fun tales and some fun roads that we went down this merry time of year.
Yeah, this is the merriest time. I guess happy holidays,
Yeah,
and I hope it's a spooky new year. Just
right.
kidding.
Well, I also hope that, if you don't have to get us anything for Christmas or the holidays, but one thing that you could do for us is, rate the show, give us 5 stars and
Yeah.
share it that like we are the gift. I mean, obviously we're the gift and our doppelgangers are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, indeed.
So if you want to hear more content, more stories, more book recommendations, more, meandering conversations, then share this show.
Yeah, we
Mm,
hope you laughed along with us and or just made fun of us. That's fine too. We don't really
yeah.
care.
Make fun
Um
of make fun of Jess's doppelganger because Jess has some, she gets sad
I get
about
a
things.
lot of doppelgangers. There are a ton of doppelgangers around me. Like I get that at least once a month where somebody says that I look like someone or oh, take a look at this. This person looks just like you. And every time I'm like, oh, yeah. But in my head, I'm like, oh, God.
And it's always somebody else, like totally different.
It
It's
is
never
to me. To
right.
me, I'm like, that person doesn't look like me at all. But I'm
You're
always
like,
like, no, I get it. Yeah, I see it. I don't.
yeah,
I
dude,
don't see it
I'm
at
gonna do
all.
that like now. I'm gonna like show you a picture of someone like obviously nothing like has a beard. But look at
Yeah.
doesn't this look just like you? And you're gonna be like, yeah,
I'm gonna punch you.
yeah. Yeah. Another gift. Another
Yeah.
gift.
The next time I see you,
No.
be like,
Yeah.
what did you say to me?
Yeah.
I got rid of my beard.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Good smooth shave. This
um,
podcast is brought to you by the Dollar Shave Club. Jess is evidence of the Dollar Shave Club's
Dollar Shave
success.
Club. Who wears short shorts? Um, yeah. Don't put nair on your face. I feel like that'd be a bad idea. They used to have them like people would bleach their mustaches. Do you remember
Yeah.
like in the 80s and 90s they bleached it?
Yeah.
Ugh. Ugh. Don't do that. One
Yeah.
girl in high school burned her face by putting actual bleach because she didn't understand that you had to like mix it with stuff and she had like burn marks
Oh God.
on her like upper lip area. It was, it is sad. It was sad. I felt bad for her, but at the same time, it's kind of funny when you think about it.
That was your doppelganger that left.
That was my doppelganger that laughed, yeah,
Yeah.
as an adult. No, that was sad. She didn't know any better. Um, okay, I guess we'll wrap this up. So, whether it is whiskey with eggnog or ghosts, keep your spirits up.
Happy holidays, everybody.